Yeah, I guess I'll go at it now, and I'm going to go back on what Brian just said about, the fact that Clemson can lose this, the Georgia can lose this game, and they've still got, a chance to be competitive because you look down the line that, they should beat pretty much everyone else on their schedule. I think the only competition there would probably be Florida, and you win that game, you're the SEC East champion. You've got a chance to go into Atlanta and probably play an Alabama team. And if it's not Alabama, it's going to be someone else that's very highly rated and probably playoff bound. And you've got a playoff, essentially quarterfinal game there, a chance to play your way into the college football playoff and into that Final Four. So I do agree that Clemson probably needs this more from that perspective, that there's not another marquee game on the schedule that Clemson can fall back on and say, hey, we improved. We didn't beat Georgia, but look at it the way we finished the season, and we beat Virginia, North Carolina, Duke. I mean, there's some good teams, but there's not the same caliber of teams after Clemson in the ACC that the SEC has. Outside of Georgia with Florida and Alabama and Texas A&M and potentially LSU. So I do agree with that. I will say, kind of going back to what you were saying about losing some of these games, a history of doing it, whether it was, the LSU game a couple of years ago, the Ohio State game last year. Georgia's got that too. And it has certainly, even more so than Clemson, has had the difficulty of winning the big game. And I think you go back to that 2017 season, 2018 national championship game. Georgia hasn't won a huge game since then. I mean, the Rose Bowl, the 2018 Rose Bowl game against Oklahoma was a huge win. But then since then, you lost to Alabama in the national championship game. The next year, you lose to LSU on the road in a marquee matchup on CBS. And then you get another chance at proving yourself against Alabama to the same setting, 2018 SEC championship game. The wheels come off there in the second half, and Georgia loses that one. They drop a game against South Carolina in 2019 that they probably shouldn't have. That a team that's elite does not drop. And then they get another chance to prove themselves in that 2019 SEC championship game, and they get run out of the building by LSU. They lose the bowl game in there to Texas. They won two New Year's Six bowl games over Baylor in the Sugar Bowl and over Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl. But I don't think that, for Georgia fans, I don't think that those two wins sit nearly as well as a win over Alabama, a win over LSU in one of those settings. And so I think Georgia needs this win from that perspective. Like I said, they've got opportunities. They've got the schedule that sets up well for them, where they can lose this game and still have a chance to make the playoff. But just from a fan's perspective, from a I guess kind of the vibe around the program, if Georgia loses this game, that's another big game loss that Kirby Smart has on his record and on his resume, and that's just something that the Georgia fans would really like to avoid here. And there's no better way to start your season than winning the game, and it can potentially be even bigger when you beat a top 5 team like Clemson. And so I think from that perspective, Georgia really needs this game.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. I mean, Kirby Smart, he needs a big win too, no doubt about it. I think both of these teams need this win. I mean, it's really just, I guess it's just how you look at it. Both of these teams need this game, and they need it badly. And
that's what makes it so great.
Yeah, and I'm not just talking about a playoff from the playoff perspective, because I don't think either team's knocked out of the playoff with a loss by any stretch. They may not control their own destiny, but I mean, both teams could go on to run the table and get in. A one-loss SEC champs surely not getting left out. A one-loss ACC champs never been left out. So, I mean, I'm not even really talking about from a playoff perspective. I'm just talking about from perceptions. But, yeah, you make the very valid points. But both these teams need this game very badly. And like you say, that's part of what makes it, such a big game.
Yeah, I see the debate going either way in regards to who needs the game more, because on the Clemson side, if you're going to say Clemson needs this game more from the standpoint that, you both had made the point that Clemson is just not going to see an opponent unless things change radically and somebody jumps up as to be somebody we don't expect them to be. The Clemson, I don't believe that they've got another ranked opponent on the schedule, on the regular season schedule. No, they get to the ACC championship game. They're gonna hope, if they lose this game to Georgia, number one, the loser has to lose close. They have to be impressive. If this is a classic 38-35 game, then the committee's going to look at that and be like, if Georgia loses 38-35, Clemson goes on to beat Clemson, and they're sitting there at the end of the year 13-0, and they're number 1 or 2 in the country, they're not going to knock Georgia to 8. They're going to say, this is still one of the top 4 teams in the country. The 2 of the top 4 teams in the country just happen to play each other. So we're not going to penalize the loser because they showed that they can stand toe-to-toe. On the other hand, if it's 38-14, then that becomes a problem. Now, again, on the Clemson side, if they lose, the counter argument to that they don't have the opponent to make up for that, but they also don't have the opponent in their way. So as long as they go undefeated in the ACC, win the conference championship game, they're sitting there at 13-1, and they lost a close game to Georgia, they should be in good shape. Georgia, on the other hand, has the issue of whoever comes out of the West, and most likely Alabama, of they lose to Clemson, and even if it's a quote-unquote good loss or impressive loss, if they don't win the conference championship game, then, maybe we're all sitting here saying Georgia's one of the best 4 teams in the country, but they just couldn't get picked because there are a bunch of one-loss conference champions. So by the way it's supposed to be done, looking at conference championships and looking at records, Georgia got left out. But, man, they lost to Alabama by a field goal. They lost to Clemson by a field goal. Man, they kind of got screwed, but that's the way it happened. And certainly if Georgia wins this game, runs the SEC table, and then loses in decent fashion to Alabama, I still think they're going to be in good shape as a one-loss SEC runner-up that most likely lost to the best team in the country. I just think as long as it's a close game, neither one's in bad shape.